So exam essentials. For the exam essentials, you need to understand the 4 steps of the business continuity planning process. The business continuity planning process includes 4 steps: project scope and planning, business impact assessment, continuity planning, and approval and implementation. All 4 of these steps are used to ensure that business operations continue in the event of a disaster. One thing we found that was similar to a BCP is a RAID system in a server. RAID technology mirrors data from one disk to another so that if one disk fails, then the server operates without any downtime or data loss. Just like how a BCP would do that for a business. In the event of a disaster, a BCP would allow the business to run with the least amount of downtime as possible and without as much data loss as it would without a BCP. Second, you need to describe how to perform the business organization analysis. In the business organization analysis, the individuals responsible for leading the BCP process determine which departments and individuals have a stake in the business continuity plan. When the BCP leaders have determined the departments and individuals who have a stake in the BCP, they have a few options. 1. They can use it as a foundation for BCP team selection. 2. Use it to guide the next stages of BCP development. So an example of us doing this in school is in a project-based situation, and someone assigns people different roles or duties to perform to work on their project. The leader in this case could assign people to research a certain topic, someone else could work on the presentation, and the other could work on a script of some sort. So third, you need to be able to list the necessary members of the business continuity planning team. In order for a BCP team to be effective, they should contain representatives from each of the operational and support departments, such as technical experts from the IT department, security personnel with BCP skills, legal representatives familiar with corporate legal, regulatory, and contractual responsibilities, and representatives from senior management. So using our example from earlier, this is like having your project members report to you with the progress they've made with their duties. Then you guys could come up with a plan to put all of your progress together and finish up your project. So you also need to know the legal and regulatory requirements that face business continuity planners. Business leaders must exercise due diligence to ensure that shareholders' interests are protected in the event disaster strikes. Some industries are dedicated to protecting shareholders, such as federal, state, and local regulations. An example we use to understand this are security guards. They can work in any district, and their main goal is to protect the people in the building in the case of any disastrous event. So you also need to know how to explain the steps of the business impact assessment process. So the 5 steps of the business impact assessment process are identification of priorities, risk identification, likelihood assessment, impact assessment, and resource prioritization. The business impact assessment identifies the resources that are critical to an organization's ongoing viability and the threats posed to those resources. So one thing that helped us understand business impact assessment is something like the bus ridership program. In bus ridership, we identify the priorities, which are the people on board. Second, we identify the risks, which are any accidents that can happen while driving. Third, we also identify how likely it is to happen. And fourth, we check to see how bad the damage is if a crash occurs. And last, we check to see if the escape routes are accessible. For the exam essentials, you also would need to know how to describe the process used to develop a continuity strategy. So during the strategy development phase, the BCP team determines which risks will be mitigated. While the team is in the provisions and processes phase, they start to design mechanisms and procedures that will mitigate risks. After the designs are finished, they must be approved by senior management and implemented. So an example of something similar would be like the creation of a new product. When a new product is made, it must be tested for risks by senior management, and then it is implemented into the store when it is complete. So the last thing you would need to know is how to explain the importance of fully documenting an organization's business continuity plan. Committing the plan to writing provides the organization with a written record of the procedures to follow when disaster strikes. It prevents the "it's in my head" syndrome and ensures the orderly progress of events in an emergency. One way we do this already is when we write notes. Instead of just trying to remember the information, we write it down and use it as reference for a later date, like when we need to study for a test or like when we need to study for an exam.